Good evening, everybody, and welcome back. It's Friday night. That means it's time for the Creative Cranium. I got some great guests tonight, and we got a great topic, too. I can't wait to dive into this. Before I start, I'd like to say a special thanks to our new sponsor. That's Nerdables, for all the greatest for your collecting needs, including 3D printing and laser engraved wood etchings. So please take a moment and check them out. First of all, please welcome John Westhoff to the show. What's up, John?
Nothing much, sir. Just hanging with some cool people on a Friday night.
Nice, nice. And we got Todd, too. How you doing, Todd?
Good. Thanks for, I needed some water.
Yeah, it's cool, man. We're allowed to drink water. Hey, for those of us, I'm just meeting Todd for the first time. So why don't we start out? Let's go around for the viewers that don't know, and we'll introduce ourselves and also tell us what you're mostly known for. So, Todd, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, I've been working in comics in and out for like 30 years now. I started in the early 90s working with Jim Valentino. I worked at the Shadowline office and just learned the day-to-day grind there for quite a while, and kind of moved away from the creative aspect and got an office gig for a bit. But, always dabbled with it, did some self-publishing in 2010 for a few years, tried that out. And then I came back to it probably about, I don't know, it must have been like 2019, because I moved up to the Portland area to live with my fiance, and I had a job opportunity up there at the time. And then I had been going up there visiting friends in the comic industry. Jim Valentino had moved Shadowline up to Portland. So whenever I'd go up there, I'd visit him, and he'd kind of show me what was going on and give me the update on what he was doing with Image, and was always gracious to ask me if I wanted to come back to work. And finally, there was an offer to letter the very last Shadowhawk book, and yeah, I couldn't say no to that. That was a lot of fun. Got to redesign the logo to do the to kind of pay homage to Rob Liefeld's original Youngblood logo.
Cool. Yeah.
This is actually the 3D version that Brian Haberlin's studio, Anomaly Studios.
Tell you what, hold it up. I'll give you a solo layout. Go ahead.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, nice, man.
Yeah. So this one is available in the 3D and non-3D version.
Nice.
Yeah, and then from there, he just said, "Hey, I'm doing this Normal Man omnibus, re-releasing all the Normal Man material." And he said, "Would you like to re-letter it?" So that was like 400 pages of lettering, and then we lost our colorist halfway through, and so he said, "Hey, would you like to color the thing?" So I colored half of this as well. So ended up bringing some of the colors into the digital age.
Yeah, beautiful.
So this was a lot of fun. This was like a 1.5-year long project to re-letter and color this thing.
Here, let me give you a full solo again.
All right, there we go. Normal Man Omnibus from Image Comics and Shadowline is available.
It's beautiful. That's beautiful, buddy.
It's $49.95, but a lot of fun.
A bargain at twice the
deal of a deal. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I've been up to, and then I'm doing a couple other projects right now. I was able to work with the Business Insider. They do some journalistic reporting comics, and I was able to do some of those with Josh Adams, Neil Adams' son.
Oh, wow.
Who was the art director. And that was so much fun, because it was kind of like it came full circle, because I was actually Josh's first editor when he went pro. I was working for pro wrestler Rob Van Dam at the time, and he was doing a comic book called Twisted Perception. We had recently moved on from the art team that we were working with, and we brought Josh on, and he did such a really nice job. But that was like 20 years ago, and all these years later, he said, "Hey, you want to do some lettering for me?" So that was a lot of fun. Very
nice.
Cool.
So I guess I should have some, I know John does some lettering too. I'll have to develop some lettering questions for tonight. So John, you and I know each other. Boy, we've been in the trenches together. We've been podcasting, editing, doing all kinds of stuff. And I'm so excited to hear about your latest book, which, by the way, I just got mine. But to start with, for the viewers, if they don't know who John is, please introduce yourself and tell us what you're mostly known for.
I am John Westhoff. I am the writer, letterer, publisher for Part Time Comics. My creator-owned a self-publishing company. I am most known for being an idiot on the internet because I ain't never done nothing that nobody knows. Uh, well, my two most popular self-published books are co-creations, uh, Bulletproof Chicken, and now the aforementioned Drumsticks of Doom, which is
Yeah,
now
that's
in its
great,
second
man.
miniseries. Uh, the first issue of the second miniseries is on Zoop right now.
Sweet. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. I wanted to start out tonight by asking you guys some questions, right? And I like to get into the heart of creativity. You know, I'm a pretty creative fella myself. I got a new song that's going to be coming out in just a day or two here, but I don't want to talk about me tonight. I want to talk about you guys. And my question is this, you know, for creators, they have a thing called imposter syndrome. And we've talked about this on the show before. And my belief is that we all have a little bit of a fear that keeps us from realizing our true potential. And what I want to know is, if we weren't having a fear of failure, what would we try to do? Like, in other words, there was no boundaries to anything. Todd, if you could not fail, what would you do?
uh, I would open a pizza shop. I'd open a pizza shop that really promoted to the art community. And I would say, hey, you know, come and have pizza on a Tuesday night or a Wednesday night, maybe New Comic Book Day. And if you're a comic book creator, come and, you know, get a discount, whatever I can afford to discount at.
I think it's a great idea. Man, I would come to that place.
I mean, I feel like, you know, I've been in this hustle for quite a long time, and I know a lot of creators that like pizza, and I know a lot of creators' families and even non-creators who like pizza. So shoot, maybe that's a way to get non-comic book readers to check out some new material. You know, hey, come in and not only do you get like a cool deal on a slice of pizza or three, but look, I'll throw in this free comic book. And guess what? The guy's sitting right there having his dinner. You should go talk to him when he's done eating. He's really cool. I don't know. Something like that might be fun, you know?
I mean, I've definitely seen quite a few comic coffee shop crossovers are having success, so why not?
I love that idea. Do you have a potential name for it, Todd?
Oh, boy. No, not yet.
I caught you off guard.
Slice of life, obviously.
There you go. Slice of life. I like that. I like that.
Sequential slices.
Sequential slices. Wow, that was awesome. That's
pretty good, right? I like that because it's a little alliterative too. Yeah, I love alliteration. You guys, if you know my writing, you know.
Oh yeah, Water Wars, right? Yeah, there you go.
Very much. Yeah, I got and we got Call of the Cryptid too, is the other one.
There you go.
A lifetime of reading comics has made me deeply alliterative. Hey, do either of you two know this fella? And I don't know him really myself, so I hesitate to give a shout out, but he's done a lot for the comics community. He's this guy, Sean Mack, who does cuts and comics. It's a haircut place that sells comics.
I just saw him post about it, but yeah, I haven't seen any
genius.
Pictures of the inside or anything. Yeah.
Yeah, as genius. So, John, I got the same question for you, right? Because for people that don't know, we got a little bit of a musical background. John, if the fear of failure was non-existent, what would you do?
Probably sit around and do nothing, right? Isn't it the fear of failure or the desire to overcome that drives us to do stuff? I might just sit around like Caligula and eat grapes all day if I couldn't fail.
Like hedonism bot.
Yeah. But realistically, I mean, I would love to open a comic shop music venue. I've seen a couple, including the Zone Comics here in Homewood, Illinois. Used to have, you know, small punk shows in the back, and I always thought that was like the coolest thing. That's probably what I would invest in.
That's a pretty good one. I'm similar myself. You might have heard this expression before, and I'm going to do this in the form of a question in a second, but I got a little bit of a music background, so I always lean toward musical elements. I'm a writer mostly now, but we do a fair amount of songwriting. So they say that if you wake up in the morning after you win the lottery, whatever the first thing that you do is, that's what your true dream is. And there's a little bit of truth in it, because like for me, one of the first things I always do when I wake up is I grab the guitar and I play a little bit of guitar. So let's jump over to Todd. Todd, when you wake up in the morning and things are going well for you, let's say it's not a difficult day, maybe it's your day off, whatever, what's the first thing that you do?
Gosh, you know, okay, so it's my day off. That's what okay. You know, it might be, I might do something similar to you. I might go pick up a guitar. I might play some records, but honestly, it seems like my schedule has been so hectic lately that my weekends kind of just melt right into the work days. Does that make sense? I wake up and I tell myself, oh, it's Saturday, and well, I better get to work. I got a deadline. So
Right.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny, the real world tends to intrude on our goals. John, how about you? You wake up in the morning, it's a beautiful day, the sun's shining. What's the first thing you do?
I mean, a metaphor for my life. I use the bathroom, right? I take a dump, and that's what I'd probably be doing.
I mean, in the sense of you're like a leisure activity.
You know, when I wake up before the kids, even before I had kids and I was doing this whole comic thing, I get to work. I find what needs to be done in the project. Do updates need to be sent out? Does lettering need to be done? Do I need to coordinate with a collaborator? So I think that's what I'd be doing. Like I part of out of necessity, right? I have to fit it in on the off hours from work, but I enjoy it. Like that's the first thing I usually think about. Have some breakfast and sit down at the computer and see what needs to be done for the company.
So I'm sensing that both of you guys have a pretty strong work ethic. So I'm going to ask this question next, right? We're all of us roughly in the creative field. We're making comics, but Todd, why comics? What was it that drew you toward that?
that's tough. I feel like, as a kid, I was drawn to other kids that were creative, and this one guy, Robbie, in my elementary school, created a story. He drew this story with crayon and had text on it, and one of his teachers was so impressed with it that she had it bound at the local print shop, and he brought it to show and tell one day, and I just remember thinking like, oh my gosh, that is mind-blowing. And because I had always been a fan of animation, I gravitated towards comics as a kid. And the first thing I wanted to see, and maybe it was a bit of vanity press for me, but one of the first things I wanted to see was my name on a book that at least registered to other people as, oh, you tried to do a comic book, kind of thing.
Yeah, sure.
And I want to say that was, geez, maybe I was like 5, 6. And so I've always kind of gravitated towards artistic endeavors. And I feel when I started doing comics, I started as a writer. And I think I really enjoyed the camaraderie of meeting people, working with the team, going to conventions at the time. This was like during 1992 through 97. I loved going down to San Diego Comic-Con and just seeing people that I was only going to see during that time of the year. And I think because I also had a job a day job at the time, it was more of a fun activity for me. Even though I still love the medium, I was still such a Uber fan. But you know what? It wasn't probably until I started working with Jim, maybe a handful of years later, where he really sat me down and said, if you want to be serious about this, you could probably make a living doing this kind of stuff, and that sounded really good to me. And granted, I have left comics to take jobs at, let's say, Kaiser Permanente and whatnot. But even then, most of my expendable income at that time was going towards publishing my own comic books. So when I got back into it as a letterer and then later as a colorist, it was sort of like, well, shoot, I still love working in this medium. I still love being a part of it. It would sure be nice not to have to pay so much out of pocket to do it. Right. Maybe I'll start working for other creators and seeing how I can help them. Because there are a lot of people out there now wanting to create a comic book, and they want their end product to look professional.
Yeah.
And I've taken a look at some of the Water Wars, and I think you have a very professional and very sharp product.
Thank you.
But had you not taken the time to maybe research and find the artist that you wanted to find and develop the team that you wanted to work on the story with, it may have had a completely different feel. Yeah. Maybe you would have pushed out issue 1 and maybe not been super satisfied, but at least you got something out. And then the next thing you know, you've got cases upon cases in your garage not helping you pay the bills. And it becomes something that you're a bit resentful towards. And I felt like I don't ever want my comics to get to that point, you know? And so when I came back in and seeing how digital printing was working and seeing that I don't have to buy a bazillion units just to get a good per unit cost anymore, I can order a few hundred, go to a show, sell some, give some away, and then maybe network to get some jobs. Yeah, that's sort of really been, it was really an epiphany to realize that I could find work doing this for other people.
Yeah, and that's a heck of a pedigree you have there too, Todd, with some of the people you've worked with.
I've just been really fortunate, you know, right place, right time. And
my sense is that you say you're fortunate. I sense that you're very humble, but I bet there's a good bit of work and effort that went into your fortune. Yeah. Fortune favors the prepared mind. And by the way, hold that thought about the animation, because I want to talk about that next. John, how about you, right? You and I have talked about this a couple of times. You can do a ton of things, right? Why comics? What drew you to comics?
Well, and I think I've said to you before, I never really had the drive to write comics. My brother, he's a year older than me. He used to get the white, all white page books and do his own comics, and he loved Rob Liefeld, so he had all his Deadpool ripoff characters.
Oh wow!
And I would read his stories, and he would make little Lego stories with his character. He was very creative. Now myself, like you said, I've always been in bands,
Yeah.
And as I got a little bit older and I started, my mid-20s, I started branching out into independent comics and realizing, wait a minute, you don't have to be attached to a publisher or write, stories of characters that already exist. It didn't occur to me until I was much older in my comics reading career. And then I was back in the old days, for us old people, we used to go on comic forums or message boards on the internet, and that's how we would meet like-minded people instead of social media. And I met a bunch of people who were making their own comics, and I was just so impressed, that they literally drew their own stuff, took it to a Xerox machine, Xeroxed it out, and they had a comic. And I was like, well, the one thing I did do most of my life was I used to always do comedy routines with friends. We used to make videos. We'd make fake videos for our bands and stuff like that. We were always kind of creative, throw them up on YouTube, throw them on whatever. And, I kind of thought about that and said, well, I've made some people laugh before. I could probably write, a funny comic. And, my band years are kind of waning, and I'm looking for something creative to do. Let me give this a chance, because like Todd said, a lot of what I enjoy about creating anything, music, videos, comics, is the collaboration. So
right.
I finding these like-minded people that made their own comics, I said, is anybody interested in, working with me? And much to his chagrin, my longtime, business partner, Bob Ornelas, reached out and said, yeah, I'll draw, throw me out some ideas. And he and I have been working together ever since. And it's a big part of, again, my transition of coming out of music. It's just been great to still have that collaboration. And, whatever the result of it is and how many readers, I look at it and I have this product, and I can always look back and say, oh, this is a cool thing, we jammed on and we made together,
Yeah. And it's a cool one too, John. It's a great book. Hey, please welcome to the show, Allison. It's great to see you. I haven't seen you since the days of the old network.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, I bet you it's been a year or more. So now we know each other, of course, because we used to be on the Madness Network together. Yep. For the viewers, please introduce yourself and tell us what you're mostly known for.
Well, I'm Allison. I go by Alley Cat online. I do art in the Alley Cat on Fridays with the Indie Comics Network. I also hang out with the guys on the Sunday Morning Funnies, where we go over and talk about whatever book Randy's showing off.
Yeah, that's Randy, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I love that guy. He's awesome.
Yes, Randy's great. Yeah. They're all great over there. I love them all.
Yeah.
Good friends with Glenn and stuff. So yeah.
So I want to ask you this question too, right? I love this question. So if the fear of failure was non-existent, what would you do?
Fear of failure is non-existent. Let's start doing martial arts again.
Oh, wow, that's a good one. I didn't see that coming. What's your? I don't know your background. What's You did martial arts before?
I studied Kenpo for about 30 years.
Oh, wow. How about that? Well, I'm very interested in martial arts, but I guess you'd say I'm lacking in all areas that are required to to succeed in it. But it's something that I sure do find interesting.
Yeah, my MS kind of ruined my martial arts career going forward. So I've lost a lot of my sense of balance and things. So
Gotcha.
I have a lot of neuropathy in my legs. So walking is difficult, let alone trying to take stances and things.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons Lori Calcaterra and I really clicked, is we're both martial artists.
Yeah. Lori just got a new book too. I just received hers actually on the same day I got John's.
And she just launched like a couple hours ago.
Yep.
Oh, no kidding.
Path to Pale Road #5. Yeah, we were talking about that earlier, actually.
We'll have to give her a shout out. Actually, she's going to be on next week. We're going to do an episode on the perils of podcasting. Again, listen, Todd, you got me again. I love alliterative names. So in that one, we're going to focus on some of the podcasting things. But I wanted to take a second and talk about the influences. Todd mentioned a second ago about animation. And first off, Todd, could you be a little bit more specific? What did you mean when you said animation?
So I feel like one of my earliest memories with animation was, before cable TV and whatnot. You remember we could flip from VHF to was it UHF?
Yeah.
Okay. So on Sunday, right around like 7 p.m., it would go from being the local, like one of the local syndicated channels would go from being a Yiddish speaking channel to Japanese syndicated TV. And my grandparents were always, I don't know how they would find this out, probably just from talking with their friends at church and whatnot, but they would always find the times for the coolest things for me to watch. And there was this show about a white lion called Kimba.
And, Kimba the White Lion, sure.
Yeah. And so I remember seeing that, and I was like, oh, this is so different from like the Bugs Bunny or the Woody Woodpecker. Yeah. I enjoyed that stuff too, but I never really quite connected until I went back and rewatched some of the Warner Brothers cartoons of just how smart they are, right? I just wasn't old enough to understand what my dad and my uncle were cracking up about. But the Japanese cartoons really kind of connected with me. You have this young lion who's trying to just make his way in the jungle, right? And then from there, I was introduced to Speed Racer. And
please mention Marine Boy right here in my area.
Marine Boy, yeah.
It was a double bill. It was Kimba and Marine Boy. We're back.
Yeah, he was called Toriton in Japan, and I remember my grandma told me about that. Oh, they dubbed it in English. You should watch it. But all these Japanese animations led to me kind of expanding into Japanese comics. And seeing the difference between the American comic and the Japanese comic, how much movement and how much animation was truly put on that paper was really amazing to me, because I felt like for the first time here I was holding a cartoon that really moved every time I turned that page. It was like, wow, I see the dynamics in this. This is really incredible. And because of that, it helped me appreciate animation even more. I was able to appreciate just the different styles that I was seeing that I'd never even thought about before. Because before watching the Japanese animations, I grew up on a steady diet, of course, of the Warner Brothers cartoons. They were just constantly playing. But there was this weird thing at the preschool where, like, oh, if you watch the Bugs Bunny cartoons, then you definitely can't be watching, let's say, Popeye or something. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it sure does.
They make fun of you. It's like you're either watching this or you're watching that. And but once I saw the Japanese mangas and related that a little bit more with the Japanese animation, I realized that this is all animation. And if you like, just because I might like Bugs Bunny, it doesn't mean that I can't therefore start liking Popeye. And you know, I started watching what was the thing that there was an actor, Tom Hatton, and he was a great artist and just a great historian of animation and comic books and Sunday Funnies. And he had this show here in LA every Sunday called the Family Film Theater. But before that, this is what I'm getting to. Sorry. Before that, he would run like 3 hours of old Popeye cartoons, and that was amazing to me. That spoke volumes. Just like, wow, look at what they're doing even without color. Look at everything is moving on the screen. It's amazing. You know, does that make sense?
It does. It does. Yeah, and I was a fan of the Japanese cartoons too. I think that there was an emotional component that the American shows didn't have, and I like emotional stories. John, how about you? Right, we talked about. I know you and I share many musical influences, so I'm going to give you 2 parts. First, were you an animation guy? And if you were, what type of influences did you have from animation?
Well, I mean, my favorite show of all time is The Simpsons, so that's kind of the way.
I kind of set you up there. Yeah.
Obviously, you know, as a kid, I loved animation. I grew up in what, you know, some would consider, you know, one of the heydays of animation as far as licensed properties like, you know, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and Rescue Rangers, and Tailspin, and you know, Transformers was a little bit before my time, but so I would love watching DuckTales when I got home from school, and you know, but you know, as I got older, I mean, The Simpsons are a huge influence on my sense of humor.
Yeah.
You know, how I write. You know, so it changed from, you know, the younger kid animation, all ages stuff, to, you know, a lot more of the adult humor.
Right. And look, I'm right there with you. We've talked about this a bunch of times. One of my favorite things is being in the Bort posting groups, and I see you in there as well.
Oh yeah.
I almost feel like that's part of my day now, to see what a couple of these people are doing.
Oh, for sure. It makes the general chaos of life just that much better.
Yeah, I totally
because
agree.
It's just so funny that that's like a whole microcosm of itself, right? This strange show that's went on for 35 years, and now people are changing it into these like inside jokes that we all have with each other.
Right. And you almost got to follow it. If you miss it for a couple of days, you almost don't know what's going on.
No.
So, Allison, how about you? Are you an animation fan? What kind of influences have you had from the animation field?
Well, I definitely love animation. I've dabbled with animation myself a little bit. I did a lot of Flash animation years ago when I was teaching myself Flash. The company needed a web designer, and well, I was the IT person, so I obviously had to learn how to do it. So I had them buy all the nifty stuff, and then I went and started playing with Flash and went, I can make cartoons. But yeah, I love cartoons, especially anime. I'm a huge fan of multiple anime. Actually, some of the first cartoons I watched over here were basically, they were anime that was just renamed over in the United States, like Star Blazers.
Oh, yeah. Gosh, we got to mention Star Blazers. That was one of mine, too.
And the one that really got me thinking was Battle of the Planets, or Science Ninja Team Gatchaman.
Yeah. Great stuff. Thanks for mentioning that.
That got me into superheroes in a lot of ways. This is because of that, and I really loved the Swan character, because it was it was like a girl who was competent in animation, stuff like that, and she blew things up, and that was just cool.
I want to add a dimension to this question, and this is a little harder, Allison. How do I want to ask this?
Careful.
Why is it that Americans respond to Japanese animation?
I think they actually have like better storytelling in a lot of ways. I mean, I watched a lot of Saturday morning cartoons, but things like the Smurfs and stuff didn't really interest me growing up.
Mm-hmm.
I had to have more story than what that was. Although I did read like a lot of the Smurf comics, like the original ones that were translated. I thought those were kind of interesting. And I liked the Magic Flute movie because it had more of a story to it. Although the Smurfs don't show up until like a half hour in.
I mean, I could definitely see that. I mean, the more mature storytelling, the more, high action, they weren't as, as sugary as some of the Saturday morning stuff that was on in America for sure.
Yeah, the other thing that really got me was Akira. I saw Akira in the theater. It was at the the Wang Theater in Boston. Like my uncle took me to see it when it was getting a nationwide release. He's like, she'll like this. She likes stuff like this. So I went to see it, and that like changed everything for me to the point that I went back and I got like all of the English translated Akira comics, and that just really started me down my manga drive and everything. Now, like, I consider myself like an American mangaka in that sense. So
Okay.
my style leans a bit more towards manga.
I think you're right about that. Like we were saying, there's a little bit of a, I hesitate to say better storytelling because it's a little bit of a vague answer, but I think you're right. Like when you talk, I can remember running home from school to catch the next episode of Star Blazers because you want to find out what happened. Because for one thing, remember they were more sequential, for lack of a better word, whereas American cartoons tend to be like shorts, right?
Yeah, they're episodic.
Episodic, yeah, good way to put it. Like you could watch, I'm just going to pick one. Scooby-Doo was another one that I liked.
I love Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, but you could miss a week and it wouldn't really matter too much. Whereas if you miss an episode of Star Blazers, you didn't know what was going on the next week.
Yeah, much more so. Because, like, what did I miss?
Yeah. And I can even remember that that was the first time I can remember watching an animated series and thinking, oh, that episode was kind of sad. Like, remember, there was times they didn't always win.
Oh, yeah.
Matter of fact, they lost a lot, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, the second season was even more so in a lot of ways with things that they had done when they were against the Comet Empire. I actually liked the second season better. Like, a lot of my friends were like, oh, no, the first season is great. And I'm like, I really like the second season better because I don't know, I gravitated more towards the giant comet that was approaching Earth.
Yeah, but, I remember that.
The whole thing of like when they're like, oh, they just barely got out alive. I'm like, no, they didn't. You knew they were dead. Like 5-6-year-old me knew they were dead. So
yeah. Well, it sounds like we have some similar influences in the animation realm. I want to circle back around to some other things because it seems like we've got some stuff in common. So let's start with maybe a little bit of music. Todd, I'll start with you. When you were starting to be creative, what kind of stuff were you listening to as far as music?
So, at a young age, my dad was always playing records when I was in the house. And, I can remember the Byrds. I can remember the Stones.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Neil Diamond, the Mamas and the Papas. My parents didn't really expose me to the Beatles until I was probably about 5 or 6. There was a Broadway show that was kind of touring that summer. It was called Beatlemania.
I remember.
I fell in love with the Beatles music after that. And so oddly enough, like I think one of the only reasons Jim Valentino kept me around for years and years is because he's a Beatles fan too. Actually, the only reason I probably got work from him is because like I would just constantly talk to him about the Beatles. But I would say right around the time I started getting really more involved with comics creatively, I was listening to a lot of 80s goth because I had just graduated high school, and I was looking for something with a little bit more meaning than what I was listening to at the time, and which was probably, through high school, I was really into U2 and the Police. By the time I graduated high school, I was really into like Sisters of Mercy and the Mission UK, pre-Electric, The Cult, and the Cocteau Twins. So I was listening to that kind of stuff, and I felt like I was being really creative as a writer because I was also reading Sandman at the time too, I think.
Nice.
So I thought I was all like, wearing black with long hair and brooding and writing some brilliant shit, but whatever. I just myself. But
That's great.
now, as a creator, I think what I've been listening to a lot of is oddly, I listen to electronica a lot. I was one of those people like, oh, I don't get electronica at all. I'm a traditionalist. I beat on the drums and I play guitar. But once I started going to clubs in my 20s and 30s to listen to DJs work, I was amazed that, well, one, I was amazed that they could make so much money just mixing music, because I was really into hip hop as a junior high schooler, and that was like when Run DMC and Houdini and Curtis Blow were big. And so I really wanted to, be the next dude on the Wheels of Steel, right? So I was mixing hip hop at the time. So I was thinking like, geez, if these guys are making thousands of dollars now just playing dance music for people, maybe that's a career path I should consider,
Yeah.
But I found that when I listen to electronica, especially things that are a little bit more mellow and things that are a little bit more, even if it's just kind of droning and repetitive, I don't get so out of my head when I'm trying to really concentrate. And if I've got a big deadline ahead of me, right, I just need to get in there and do whatever I got to do rather than worry about, okay, are the kids fed? Is the dog walked? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well,
now,
you're in the heyday too, right? Did I understand you're from California?
yeah.
Yeah. So you're in the right spot.
Yeah. So now what I listen to when I create, for the most part, if I'm not listening to just some kind of electronica, then I'm listening to a lot of podcasts.
Oh. Gotcha.
Because maybe I feel like I'm educating myself somehow while I'm drawing funny books,
Yeah, sure. I get that one. So, man, I can't wait to hear this next answer because, John and I are essentially separated at birth. I sometimes get the sense. John, I want to know your musical influences and what you listen to while you're creating.
Well, I mean, the big one for me, my first CD was Ace of Base, stuff like that, and then
they were awesome. I remember them. Yeah.
But then I was at the right age for the Nirvana craze, so that was the big step for me. Nirvana, Pearl Jam, and I was like, oh, this is what music could be, and it's so cool. And the first band I really latched onto after that was Tool.
Oh.
And then shortly after, falling in love with them and buying everything I could from them, my first concert at 14 years old was 9 Inch Nails. And they had a crazy act open up for them called Pop Will Eat Itself, and they had the Jim Rose Circus. And I was like, holy shit, music is the most amazing thing ever. Let's do crazy stuff. People smell like something I've never smelled before. It's like, this is great. That was a big thing. But, alternative was huge, when I was 13, 14, 15. And then later in high school, got really into heavy metal and, White Zombie and Cannibal Corpse and all that stuff, and went down that rabbit hole. So, heavy metal is kind of, where I ended up. But I'm very fortunate. I enjoy very weird and strange music. My favorite band is Primus.
Primus sucks.
And yes, they do. My favorite band is Primus. I have lots of weirdo friends. I have an older brother, again, who's a huge influence on my musical taste. So I'm very fortunate that I have accepting and welcoming friends. Yes, we all listen to heavy metal and fell in with that crowd. But, I really do find that I like to mix things up. Sometimes it's the mood of the book. When I wrote World's Strongest Mailman a decade ago, it was Huey Lewis in the News. And, when I write Drumsticks of Doom now, it's Manowar and Dio and stuff like that. So
nice.
I try to, switch to the mood of the book. If I'm just lettering, it's usually like, kind of noisy heavy metal, like Converge or something like that. So like Todd said, I can just kind of zone in and click the mouse and do what I need to do. But, I'm a heavy metal guy at heart. But I have part of Drumsticks of Doom, the writing too, is that I've definitely gotten more into singer-songwriters as I've gotten older. Female-led, acts I've been very into, St. Vincent and Angel Olsen and Chapel Roan and acts like that as I've become an older and softer man.
Older and softer man. Allison, how about you? Are you inspired by music? First of all, do you remember what your first influences were, and what are you listening to while you're creating?
My first influences, well, the first music that I got into as a kid, first album I ever got was as a Christmas present was Michael Jackson's Thriller.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was issued to everybody in the suburbs.
certain
Right?
age,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, being Gen X, I think everybody got the Thriller album.
Yeah.
But the music I heavily gravitated towards was my parents exposed me to their music. And my mother and I have very similar musical tastes. Like, I love the Rolling Stones, I love the Doors, I love Beatles,
Nice.
pretty much anything. I like old Motown.
Oh, sweet. Yeah.
I gravitate towards things like older country music I enjoy. Heavy metal probably is one of my absolute favorites, though.
Nice.
A primary band that really influenced me was Iron Maiden.
Get it.
And,
Yeah.
and Metallica. I've seen both of them. I don't remember the amount of times I've seen Metallica live, but I have been in the front row, and I got to headbang with Jason
Nice.
Newsted at one point.
Nice.
Oh, I love Jason Newsted, by the way.
The song that influenced me the most was actually from Bruce Dickin's first solo album, Balls to Picasso, which was 2 squares for the symbol. And it was a song called Tears of the Dragon.
Oh, I remember it.
It is probably still my favorite song ever written.
Wow.
Absolutely love it. But I also listen to like Sisters of Mercy and all that. And I like the Cranberries, Pearl Jam. I was definitely ground zero when Nirvana hit. Iron Maiden, never heard of her.
Got to give a shout out, man. That's my buddy Zorb, my college roommate. We have
Iron Maiden.
Yeah,
Excellent.
that's good stuff. You know, I'll just make a quick comment. In my case, I can remember I was 14 years old, and I got an older stepbrother. He was 16 or 17. I just thought he was super cool. And he used to hang out in the upstairs attic room with his friends, sitting around a table, hanging out, generating this kind of odd smell that John mentioned. And I remember I wanted to see what those guys were listening to. And I waited till they went to go somewhere, and I snuck upstairs and I flipped through the album collection. I picked out this one, and it was the spookiest image I ever saw. And I remember saying to myself, what's Black Sabbath? And man, the rest is history. Here we are, right?
Yeah, that was definitely a thing.
So let's switch gears just a hair, and then I want to talk a little bit about what we're all making, and which is movies. Like, I think that's another one of the things that has had an influence on our creative career. And I'm kind of trying to tie this in because in my case, the fear of failure, I kind of got some interest in trying to make a movie. But let's start with Todd. Todd, what kind of movies have influenced your creative work? And if you have a favorite movie of all time, what is it?
I honestly don't have a favorite movie of all time. I could, probably rattle off maybe 5 movies that I would want with me on a desert island.
Let's hear them. Let's hear the 5 then.
Probably the first Alien.
Great film.
Great one.
Maybe the first Terminator. It's between Terminator 1 and 2.
One myself.
Also, Seven Samurai.
Nice.
Fantastic.
Actually, last 3 are probably all Kurosawa films. Ran, Seven Samurai, and Ikiru.
All those are great.
Yeah, it's good
Ron I
stuff.
have some issues with, but that's more because I think it drags at points. But I love Kurosawa's movies.
Yeah, I remember seeing Ran in the theater because I didn't get to see Kagemusha in the theater because it was only here for like a week or 2. But when they released Ran, it ran the same time, so that it premiered. So I remember that was such a huge deal, and just going to the theater with so many other Kurosawa and enthusiasts, it was a really neat vibe and energy in the theater,
Yeah, I saw Seven Samurai in the theater.
What's that?
I saw Seven Samurai in the theater.
Oh, that's cool.
It was fantastic. They had an intermission in it too, and everything was great.
Yeah, that's really awesome.
If you're a fan of the Japanese films, are you a fan of the Ozu films at all? OZU?
I haven't seen those at all.
Those are the ones that they're based on seasons, late summer. They all have names like that. It's more slice of life, but definitely has. We talked a little bit about the emotional storytelling components of the Japanese mediums, and that was definitely one of them for me. I was like, well, these aren't like American films.
Sure.
Sort of sad and unforgettable stories about families is what they were.
Yeah.
I guess his big one is Tokyo Story.
I've seen that one.
Yeah, that's pretty good, right?
Yeah, that was a good one.
So, John, how about you, buddy? Movie guy, what does your influential movie list look like?
Oh, I mean, I like the big ones, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, but a lot of my favorite movie, Jaws. That's one of my favorite that always comes to mind. The Road, if I want to be
Oh
really
yeah,
depressed.
yeah, really.
But a lot of my favorite movies are animated. The ones I watch all the time, even before I had kids. Wreck-It Ralph,
Oh,
Wall-E, Ratatouille. Those are the ones I kind of rotate all the time when I get to pick what Dad gets to watch on the TV. Um, and I think I kind of gravitate more towards that as a writer. I'm definitely more of a comedy, lighthearted. Even though I do like the big fantasy and action, but I like to watch that as a fan. I don't necessarily think that pulls me towards that creatively, but yeah, those are the ones that come to mind.
yeah. So far, you're all match up with mine pretty close. Allison, how about you? You have a first of all, do you have a favorite of all time, or if not, just give us maybe your top of your list.
The movie I usually point to the most is my favorite is The Matrix.
Oh wow, good movie.
There's something about it that just resonates with me. Um, I really love that movie. But there's a bunch of others that I put in like a similar classification. Like I love the original Star Wars trilogy. I have issues with the sequel trilogy and the prequels. But then again, I don't think they were made for me. So that's going to go with it. The Indiana Jones movies I love, especially Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Mm-hmm.
I love horror movies, probably the most though in a lot of ways. One of my absolute favorite movies is the original Nightmare on Elm Street. I love Halloween. Recent horror films I liked was It Follows. I thought
That's a good one too. I like that movie.
I thought that was an amazing movie, and it's not about a sexually transmitted demon. So,
Well, it should be.
no, it's much better if you think about what it's actually about. Because that's just kind of boring. But but I watch a lot of movies. Probably more than anything else, I watch movies. I have a soft spot for anything found footage.
Mm.
I know most of them are garbage. I don't care. I've watched pretty much every movie Kurosawa has made. Actually, one of my favorite movies, not a Kurosawa film, is Sword of Doom. I love the filming of that. The ending really doesn't make any sense, but I believe they ran out of money twice.
Can I ask you a quick question? And I want to tie into your previous answer because it would be pretty much a generalized statement that everybody loves Kurosawa movies. But you mentioned that you like the Ozu movies, and I always thought I was the only one that liked them. Can I ask you why you liked them?
They're real.
They're real. Great
They
answer.
are real.
Yeah. By the way, they're on Hulu if anybody's curious what I'm talking about, and also they're on HBO Max.
Yeah, they have a lot of the Criterion stuff on there.
The Criterion, that's what it was. The Criterion movies, and man, they're like stupid good. Like you can't stop watching them. It's like eating chips, right? You watch one, you're like, oh, I got to see the other ones.
Yeah, they're very, very good.
Yeah. So that was my first exposure to him. I've got a little bit of Asian influence in my work. I guess if you guys know my work, I got some things in my life that influenced that. But that was the first time I was like, man, this guy's a storyteller, and it has the reality of any chance you're familiar with the short stories of Raymond Carver? Does that ring a bell to anybody? That's a little bit of an obscure reference.
Probably
yeah, Ozu, I think you could make a solid point that he's the Japanese Raymond Carver in the sense that he tells the simple stories of families with these terrible problems.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'm oversimplifying, but you see where I'm going with it.
Now,
hey, one thing before we go too far, I want to talk a little bit about what you guys are making. Okay. And if you'd like to share a link, you can drop it in the private chat there and I'll put it in. But this is one of the ones that I want to talk about because I'm a fan of it. I meet a lot of creators and I talk about a lot of books, but one of my favorite ones, I got to give a shout out, is The Drumsticks of Doom. John, can you give us a real quick elevator pitch about this book and tell us who's going to love it?
Well, the short pitch is, what if Black Sabbath, not the Beatles, became the most popular band in the world, and thus the universe was changed forever, musically and otherwise?
You muted yourself.
Hey, you're muted, John.
Still muted. Still talking. We can't hear you. And he's going.
Oh, we might have lost him.
Is he muted?
Well, actually, I know it, so I'll keep going. It's what if Black Sabbath, instead of the Beatles, became the most popular band of all time? And it's filled with all kinds of cool musical references. You don't necessarily have to be a musician to get these jokes, but it's got a lot of neat sort of behind the scenes things on what it might like to be if you were in a band and what kind of things you might experience. And I like the art style of it, and I like the sort of fun way that it approaches the genre. It sort of puts the metal into the comics, if you know what I mean. And actually, I got my copy right over by the edge of the door. So, John, I hope I'm doing it justice. I will say that it's strongly recommended. It's one of the books that I like the most currently in the indie community. And that's over on Zoop right now. Let's do a quick call to action. Go over and back with confidence. Drumsticks of Doom, banned on the Silver Mountain, which I take it this is the new one. I have the collected of the last one. And it also has some pretty cool homage covers, which are based on famous album covers. So that's something I definitely recommend you guys check it out, especially if you are a metal fan, but you really don't have to be to enjoy the stories. It's kind of geared toward music fans in general. How'd I do, John?
You did
great.
There
it is. Now it's back. Okay.
Thanks for filling in. I don't know what happened with my headset, but yeah, that's
it's
basically
okay.
in a nutshell. Second arc, she's got to record her album, right? That's where we go from here. Final arc will probably be world tour. We'll see if we get there. We got to get through this campaign first, and hopefully we can get this miniseries done. And it's planned to be 3 arcs, so we'll see if we can get there.
It's good stuff, man. I wish you every blessing.
And if you're not into comics, we have this cool stuffed animal on there.
Here, hold on. Let me give you a layout. 1, 2, go.
We've decided to branch out into some strange merch here. So this is Argyle the Arachnigator, who comes out of the book. He was co-designed by my daughter, who was 8 years old at the time.
That's great, man.
I was trying to think of something in the world that, again, if this heavy metal world was going on, what would they do? And I asked her, let's think of some hybrid creatures. They need like a pet or something. And I said, what would a spider look like crossed with an alligator? And she came up with that. And then, of course, amazing co-creator Dan Doherty, just everything he draws is just amazing. If I had known he was going to draw alligators so well, I would have, put it in issue 1. But yeah, we kind of added that, and he's gotten such a response that, people were asking for stuffies and stickers. And so we said, let's give it a shot. So.
Yeah, man, plushies the new thing, right? Everybody's making plushies.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of the popular thing. So, Allison, how about you? What are you working on these days? Do you have anything you want to shout out?
I am working on a few different things, actually. I'm working on a piece for a sword and sorcery magazine.
Nice.
This is the cover.
Oh, here, let me give you a layout. 1, 2, 3, go.
That's the cover for it.
Oh, cool.
It's my character, Cranium Volk. Kind of my way of doing kind of a Red Sonja kind of character. So
very nice
to do. So that's the cover I did for it. I'm also working on where is it? 1 sec, just saving what I was doing there. My art stream, I've been doing a lot of X-Men lately because of, the X-Men 97 show.
Yeah, it's really big now.
I have a few of them here that I did. I gave one of them away that I did to a friend. No. Did Leonardo the other day while I was playing D&D.
Cool. Yeah, all right.
Good pose.
Let's see. That's another Krasny Volk picture.
Oh, I like that one. Yeah, that's cool.
I did Jubilee in my live stream.
Yeah, very cool.
Let's see. It's my Gambit.
All right.
And Where the hell is he? That's not him. Oh, I'll show this off. It's a Frazetta study that I did.
Wow,
Yeah, that's nice.
I like that a lot.
Thanks. I like studying his work a lot. So, what's that piece? It's stupid important. There it is. Huh. My version of Wolverine.
Nice.
And on Star Wars Day, I actually drew Rey from the sequel trilogy doing the Akira slide.
Oh, sweet. How about that?
I had fun
Very
doing
nice.
that. And
Thanks for
I've been revisiting something I've been kind of just taking my time with. I was going to be doing this with a few other people, but they kind of they kind of dropped out on me, so I've been reworking it and doing it myself, which is this. Share the screen.
Oh, yeah.
My character, Nightmare. Oh, and
Yeah, I forgot we're on the same network. You can be my executive producer here.
yeah, I didn't even mean for it to auto do that, but I got all the power.
Yeah, sometimes I have Nita backstage and she's helping, but she's been kind of tied up lately. Oh, I like that one too.
And that's the plushie I want to make for this. So,
very cool. Very cool.
yeah. So that's basically what I've been doing lately.
Excellent.
Actually, I did these back in. So I did that and this back in 2021 when I was going to be working with a few people to do this book, and they all basically vanished. So I said, "Screw it, I'm doing it myself." So,
That's the spirit. Keep
We'll
going.
do it live.
Yeah, keep going. We'll fix it in post.
yeah.
So
Yeah, when I was filming a few short films, that was the mantra that the editor hated when I said it. It's like, oh, we'll just fix it in post. And she's like, Allison, shut up.
okay, so next I got ready. You guys can see that, right? Phantasmagoria, a horror anthology.
Oh, yeah.
So,
I've seen that.
yeah, and so this one's live right now, yes?
Yeah, we got 58 hours left. My first 15 years making comics, I never was invited or accepted a pitch to an anthology, and all of a sudden I got 3 in 1 year. So
Nice.
I was very honored that editor of the book, George Alvarez, he and I had met at a comic convention. He purchased one of our books years ago. We've kind of kept up on social media, and he was like, yeah, it's always nice to be asked, hey,
Congratulations, John.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
That's live right now. Go over there and back with confidence.
12 different creators, 9 stories, 84 pages for only $15. There's 10 covers. He had all of us do our own individual covers, so he's very ambitious with this project, and we're very close to funding after a very difficult. So I hate to sneak in a second one on you, but I just happen to have 2 live at the same time.
That's okay. That's okay, brother. That gives us just enough time. Todd, you're going to get the final word tonight. Anything you'd like to promote, or what would you like to say to the audience?
Sure. Hey, thanks for having me on. This has been really fun.
Yeah, man. I got to say, this has been a fun panel. I always like to learn more about you. So this is our first time. I'm interested to hear more about Todd.
Awesome. So, yeah, speaking of like some metal stuff, I recently did a project with band Sabaton. And
what
Yeah.
did you just say?
Yeah.
He's like, oh, by the way.
Yeah, I did one of the things on one of the pieces I worked on, the Business Insider for Josh Adams. One of the artists, Nick Varela, I'd been chasing her for a while. I'm like, man, you are so awesome. I hope we get to collaborate one day. And the universe helped me out. Josh called me up and he said, hey, guess who your artist is, who you're lettering over? And he's like, it's Nick Varela. I'm like, oh my God. So we did that piece together. And then she called me up afterwards and she said, I love what you did. We do this thing for Sabaton every quarter. You want to be the letterer? I'm like, yeah, hell yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah, that'll be coming out in their Camouflage magazine. It's for, I don't know if I could say which song it's for, but it has to do with flight. And I was so stoked to be doing that. Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me right now? Listen,
You'll be the first one when it comes out. I'll send you a copy.
listen, I got to tell you, because Todd, you're going to think I'm making this up, but Sabaton is my favorite band. We've been
Are
to
you
see them.
kidding? Are you
We've been to see
kidding
them
me,
3
man?
times.
What?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I got to tell you, and this is, I don't want to take away from your spotlight, but as a quick trivia, my son is a big gamer. We're all gamers over here.
Okay.
And he plays Hearts of Iron. If you don't know what that is, it's alternate history scenarios. Yeah, right. And the soundtrack is by various metal artists. And I'm in his room going, man, that song's great. Who is that? He says, well, it's this little known Swedish band. It's, they're Swedes, right? I believe.
Yes. Yes.
And he says, they're called Sabaton. Oh, man, they're amazing. I start listening to them. I love it. And so we started going to see him in concert. We just got back from seeing them. They opened up for Priest.
Oh, they opened for Priest. Yeah, that's right.
Great show. And I love Priest and everything. But let me tell you, Sabaton mops up Priest because, you know, Priest, their songs are great, but they're a little long in the tooth, you understand.
Okay.
This is the tad.
Yeah, they're in their mid-70s. Not that there's anything wrong with being in your mid-70s. I'm not being ageist. But, you know, when you're Sabaton, like, dude, I'm telling you, they were killing it. They were killing it. Yeah.
They were so good.
Yeah. So I liked it before, but now I'm totally impressed.
So no, I was at the right place, right time, did the work with the right people, but very honored to have been brought along on that. But hey, can I real quick show you some things that are coming out?
Of course. Yeah.
All right. Awesome. So here's a cover I did for, I don't know if you can see that, but this is coming out from HCMP.
Oh, wow.
This is Pink Power #2.
Nice.
The Kickstarter is currently live. And I did a pinup in the last one, but they said, hey, could you do this cover? So I'm stoked with that. Also, here's an Italian book that I'm translating. It's called The Snoopers.
You speak Italian?
No, but I went and got my my ESL teaching credentials, and so it's helping. I have a lot of Italian clients that I translate comics for.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
This is something that'll be out really soon. This is called Pandora's Army from Carlos Rafael. The Kickstarter will be going live in a week or two.
Yeah, I know Carlos.
Yeah, this has been a really fun project to work on. I've been really having a good time. Here's another Kickstarter. This is I think we funded. This is for Terminus #2. It's a sci-fi black and white book that
Jeff.
Yes, Mr. Jeffrey Haas's creation.
Yeah.
Brad Ship doing the art. And here's the cover for Pandora's Army. I'm pretty stoked with that. That
looks awesome.
Yeah, very cool.
And then finally, if anyone wants to, if you can get this, and if you can get that to register, send me an email. This will send you directly to my email link, and I will send you some free samples of some stuff I'm doing.
Nice.
Can I get it?
Excellent.
Got it.
You got it?
Yep.
All right, perfect. Wow, well, thanks for sharing that, Todd. That's really
Thanks
cool.
for giving me the time. This has been awesome, you guys. Nice meeting everybody.
Well, it's been a real pleasure, guys. We are just about to our time. Before we close, I'd like to say thanks to the panel. This has been a terrific time seeing Allison again and meeting Todd for the first time. And John, man, my brother from another mother, it's always a pleasure to have you. And I wish you every bit of success with your campaigns. As far as for the viewers, hey, we will look for you next week, every Friday night, 10 p.m., when we will be on the Creative Cranium here on the Indie Comic Network. So thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next Friday.